Hi guys, this is Todd here from Power Driven Diesel. This is the first video of our UCC 2018 truck build, and it's a doozy. When we got our invitation to compete in the Ultimate Callout Challenge, we knew that if we wanted any chance to compete with those guys, we had to build something awesome, something huge. So we put together a monster. We didn't have enough time to test, so our drag strip performance was not that great. But in the end, we worked through those problems and ended up taking first place in the sled pull. We assembled this engine last year for UCC. We wanted to take this engine out and refresh it. New rings, new bearings, get this thing ready to compete.
It's had a bunch of dyno testing, a bunch of drag race testing, that sled pull that we did last year. So we were like, let's hammer it hard before we tear it apart, see how everything is holding up.
So this was going to be the last time this truck was in the dyno before we pull the engine out to refresh it. Making sure all the data loggers hooked up, everything's ready to go, so when we run we can capture all that information. And we're ready to go now. Go ahead. So we now got it in overdrive, torque converter locked up, and we're ready to roll. So you start bringing in the RPM, and all of a sudden it just comes alive, the whole truck lifts.
I hear the load come on the dyno, it starts screaming up, starts building boost, you hear those turbos really start coming to life, and we get up right about 5,000 RPM and I see this gray column coming out of the exhaust, and I was like, oh great, and all of a sudden, poof, huge cloud of white smoke.
You think that's not good, and you're trying to like, what do I do? Gotta shut it down, so throw it into neutral, try to get the engine stopped. The dyno wheels are going, so still moving everything.
We just hear all this mechanical noise as it winds down to a stop.
Now you're thinking, well, what happened? What is it? Inside the truck, sounds like a hurt turbo. So immediately, of course, we hop out of the truck and everybody is under the hood. Will, me, Lon and Baron, everybody there.
We pop the hood, there's oil everywhere. There's oil up on top of the roof. There's oil that came out. We're just like, where did all of this mess come from?
We're scouring, looking to see what happened. Is there a rod hanging out of the block? I mean, what's happened here?
Yeah, I mean, we were seeing when he was leaking, he was looking on the back valve cover a little.
And from that first thing, we really couldn't see anything, but perhaps the valve cover was leaking. Didn't see any rods hanging out of the block.
I don't know, it sounded weird.
So right now, we just had a really nasty sound, and in my mind, I'm thinking, we just lost a whole bunch of money in turbos. So at this point, it's time to pull it in, rip the motor out, let's see what's going on. So we get the turbos off, and we get them all on the bench, and we're looking at it, and nothing is wrong. Use the turbochargers. If you lose the first one, that sends bits through the second ones, and you've lost 3, and that's a real big bill. I hate that bill.
So we're like, no turbos down, no windowed block. Hey, this is not that bad of a day on the dyno.
There's still a lot of expensive components in this engine that I was really worried about. So at this point, well, let's crank the motor over. And now we can see, okay, the valve train is no longer moving. And so we know there's something wrong in the valve train, camshaft, something like that.
Hey, we're free.
Maybe you need to go up now more.
So the engine is out on the engine stand. Right away, we strip it down. And as soon as we get that front gear cover off, we can see there's something weird with the camshaft. There's in and out play. There should not be in and out play.
Cam is broken.
So we take out the thrust washer, the thrust plate, and the gear comes off. Now, the cam's still in the box. The front part of the cam is still in the gear where it should be, so the cam is broken. This is not something you want to see. This is a camshaft, the front journal. It's fine, the journal's fine. So we're like, why did the cam break? What happened?
We didn't want to just fault the cam because it's a billet steel 62mm cam from Hamilton.
There's 2 bolts that hold that cam plate in the block. And it actually pulled the threads out of the block. There's so much force in that cam, it pulled the threads out of the block. So as we get further in the engine, we see some problems with the valve train, which you would expect. Once the cam breaks, it stops turning.
Broke all the way through. Split all the way to the bottom. Interesting.
So there's a couple of valves that are stuck open. Now the crank doesn't stop, and so those pistons go up and are just pounding those valves. And so we had about 3 or 4 valves that we could tell were bent. These are different heights. These should be the same height right now, as should these, as should these. Pretty sure we got some bent valves down in there that are holding the springs from coming up all the way. So we knew we had some hurt valves, which would be expected with a broken camshaft. So once we pulled the head off, we could see the damage to the valves. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4 bent valves.
And of course, the pistons that hit those valves, they had some damage as well. This is the worst one. There's 3 pistons in total that have some damage that we can see. And so this is where the piston came up and hit the valve that was stuck down. Not the worst break in the world. We've seen a lot worse, but we'll fix it. Cam looks fine, lobe looks pretty.
Luckily, the crank and bottom end and rods all survived. They look unscathed.
All that stuff I thought was really, really good considering the power this engine makes. So now we're here exactly where we wanted to be. It's time to refresh the motor. And we're gonna build this thing just like we did before and address a few minor issues.
We're gonna make some upgrades to the cam retainer, put some bigger bolts in there. We're thinking of hitting up ARP to get us some larger, stronger diameter bolts for this cam retainer and move on.
When you're playing with power at this level, when you're making this much horsepower, you gotta expect this. This is gonna happen. This has happened to many people in this level of competition.
You can't get mad, you can't get upset. You've just gotta analyze what broke, try to fix it, try to make it stronger, and that's what innovation's all about.
We're not the only ones gonna blow up a motor getting ready for UCC. I'm really glad it happened on my dyno, not on the drag strip.
This is what R&D is all about. This is our passion. This is what's fun for us. We don't do this just simply because we got money and we're trying to burn it. We do this because we have a passion for winning and for racing and for pushing performance.
Every time you have a catastrophic failure, it's an opportunity to learn. Yeah, it kind of sucks, but now we know a problem that we didn't know existed before. So now we can fix it and make it better. That's racing. Well, thanks for watching. If you're new around here, please subscribe, hit the like button, and stick around because we're going to rebuild this engine. We're going to stick it back in that truck, get on the dyno soon, and get some big numbers, and you're going to want to see it. Thanks.